So I'm putting new steps on my camper because I did an axle flip, and the brackets to secure the camper basically are designed. These two holes here get screwed up into the frame of the camper, and then back here there's two bolts there that you're supposed to drill through the frame again. However, this right here doesn't sit flush with the frame. It's about 1.5 inches away. The other thing that these two right here, those bolts are put in when the camper is built, and you can't get to the heads unless you are going to lift up the floor, and I didn't want to do that. So I got some 3/16 inch angle iron, 1.5 by 3, and we drilled extra holes in here, just random holes. Same thing on this side. So we're going to use lag bolts to come up through the and screw into the frame of the camper, the floor. The previous one, they welded a bracket back in here, and although it worked, it wasn't long enough to prevent, when you have the steps down, you know how they kind of push down if you don't have anything underneath them. This would allow it to rock. So what I'm going to do is, I can't get to it because the stairs are closed, but these will thread into those nuts I welded on, and I will be able to create back pressure with these bolts coming in this way. And if everything works as planned, there won't be any rocking. And then there'll be another nut on here to tighten it up so it can't come loose. So we're just going to put a little touch of paint on this real quick and then get it mounted up. So I did an axle flip on the camper, and that resulted in obviously the camper being lifted, but the back of the camper came up almost 9.5 inches, and the top of the doorstep here is now at 41.25 inches high. Had a 3-step step on the camper before that was perfect, but with the axle flip, it created a very high last step. And so before I get into what I've done here, I'm going to show you, because it's the same principle here. The way Lippert makes these steps is they're designed with 2 holes here, 2 holes there, and then that piece right there. Now, they want you using bolts, but the only way, if you're going to use a bolt, you'd have to go through the floor of the camper, and I did not want to do that and get into everything that came with that. So what I did was I used lag bolts. Did not like the idea of having only 4 lag bolts holding it up, and then those two in the back. The problem that you run into is the way Lippert designs this, and they still haven't changed it, because I'm guessing that might have been the original step. And you can see where a previous owner welded this bracket on and welded that bracket, and this was actually welded to the camper. I used my plasma cutter to cut it off. And the problem that you run into is when you unfold the steps, you have a giant lever. And what we'll do is we'll pull these out first. And so if we measure to the gravel, the top of that step, oh shit, what is it, 17 inches? That's a hell of a step. So we needed to do 4, and that's kind of what it looks like. Now, back to the mounting brackets. The way Lippert, they want those two basically drilled through the floor, or you lift the floor up, drill them in place, bolt them in place. I did not care for that, and then they have that piece down there just like on the other set of steps I showed you. So what I did here was, let me crawl under here. I welded that bracket on there, and I drilled 4 holes to hold that, 4 additional basically bolts to hold it up. So there's 8 total additional to what Lippert designed. The other thing that I did was, as you can see here, you have 1.25 inches of space right here, that because this is a giant lever, every time you step on that bottom step, it wants to pull on the front, pull it down, and push the back up. And because this doesn't touch, the problem you run into is you get a lot of flex. The other problem that you run into is even with the bracket they welded on over there, it still did not prevent the flex. So what I did was I welded 1/2 inch nuts here and here on the outside of the piece, which is important because when this closes up, you can't have any interference with the steps or they will not close tight. And if I can get in here quick. So there's a 1/2 inch bolt or nut welded on, and essentially what you do is we threaded the bolt through with another nut on it. Once it made contact with the frame, then I just simply tightened up this nut right here, and it can't back out. Okay, I did that to both sides. So those are all leg bolts. They are not bolts with nuts on them. And I was hoping this whole piece was going to be solid wood, and of course not. This is maybe 1/2 inch thick at the most, and that bolt right there and the one on the other side are the only ones that really grab into something. So I used 2.5 inch leg bolts on both of those. Now, because they don't contact the floor or the ground rather, you're always going to get some movement. And so I'm on here right now and kind of bouncing, and if you look in here, there is no flex when I step on or step off. You can see the camera moving, but that's just me. So we'll see how this holds up over time. The aluminum steps, granted those are old, really nice solid step. When you come out of the camper, your feet don't slip. Not even sure that I'm going to put the carpet back on here. And then let's see here if I can pull this out. Here, let's just flip these open. I had that piece, and that basically comes down and makes contact with the ground. I think I'm going to take that off and see if that will work on these steps here. Not sure if it will. Worst case scenario, it's 4 small holes drilled through there.